everybody, it's jrobi coming at you for Canada's Chess 2014, Day 6. This was not unlike other days. We've had some interesting play from players, and we got 2 wins on the boards today, a few draws. We're going to take a look at the wins, and yeah, we'll take it from there. The first game up here is Mr. Fiddler, who is playing black, against Mr. Mamedarov, who is playing white. And Mr. Fiddler likes to play the Dutch defense, one of my favorite black defenses, and actually does a very good job with it. As I'm flipping through the moves here, by the way, if you're white playing against the Dutch defense, your best serve fianchettoing your bishop here on g2. You can look through a Dutch database and you can find that this is definitely the strongest structure against the Dutch that tends to bode well for white. So get that bishop fianchettoed against the Dutch, and it'll do you well, especially when you're dealing with kingside attacks here, and it also lights up this bishop towards the queen side of black, which can be a liability sometimes depending on what kind of Dutch defense strategy that they play with. But let's continue on here with the moves. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on the opening part of the game just because I want to keep the videos relatively short, and all of these moves that I'm flipping through, it's dead on equal. Black's doing a great job in the position, and both sides are developing and getting active and ready for a good battle here. In fact, nothing really changes in terms of positional strength in the game until we get to a critical juncture here. Which is right here. So go ahead and just take a look at that move, pawn to h6, and take a look at your assets as white on the board. Ask some of the basic questions that you should always ask yourself when you're evaluating a position. Are any of your pieces being attacked? Are any of your pieces not defended? Same thing with your opponent, and see what you can see in this position. Well, unfortunately, Mr. Fiddler, by pushing his pawn up to h6, just left the pawn on g6 completely hanging. And worse, once this happens, it creates quite a deadly little mix-up here on the board. We've got the bishop now on g6 after that pawn is taken. No compensation for black for that pawn whatsoever, by the way. We've got the rook perched on f1, supporting a future check there on f7. And as you'll see here, once black pulls the bishop back to d5 to give that bishop a better position there out of the eye of the enemy queen, well, look at this, pawn to h5 supporting that bishop on g6. It's going to be very, very difficult to get that bishop out of there. So it was a very big positional mistake here from black, obviously just hanging the pawn. But if we continue on now, another mistake was queen to d7. Now, queen to d7 on the surface looks a little reasonable. We're bringing the queen to the square where the bishop is bearing down there on f7. However, this opens up a very big opportunity for white to get a nice set of exchanges off the table, and we're going to see that take place here. So white plays bishop to d4, attacking the dark square bishop on g7. Black's response to this is not to capture. Obviously, you don't want to capture in this position. If we just go back a move, this just opens up this type of structure here on the board. Now we've got the queen bearing down on the dark square diagonal. We've got the light square bishop perched here on g6. We've got the rook on f1. It's just not very pretty at all, and definitely not a line worth going down. So from here instead, black brings the rook over now to e6, attacking the queen. So what is white going to do about this? Well, just take a look here. Check here now on f7. And this opens up a beautiful little line here. Mamedarov played this very well. Queen captures bishop is the best move in this position. Otherwise, you just drop your rook, and it's just not worth playing anything else, really. So the queen takes the bishop. Rook takes the queen. Now, black has to take the queen now. But what does white have in this position? Go ahead and pause the video and take a look at what you think white's next move in this position should be. All right, so yesterday we talked about in the video always looking for something better. Yeah, we could take the rook here on e3, and then white can take our rook. But there's something much, much, much better here. I don't even know if taking the rook would. I don't even think taking the rook would be good, actually. But check that out. Rook check now on g7. Okay, so a nice little in-between move before we deal anything with this rook here on e3. King has to move, obviously, and when the king does, Mamandarov comes up with a beautiful move in this position, a beautiful move. Go ahead, pause the video, take as long as you want, and just really try to think of what you could play in this position here that would be the strongest possible move to play. Okay, so the move that Mamandarov came up with was rook to g5. Now this is doing a lot of things. Namely, it's attacking the light square bishop on d5, but black's rook is also still under attack, sitting there on e3. So what's black going to do in this position? There are no checks available. The only check I guess you could say that black could throw at it would be taking the pawn there on g3, but then the rook just drops, so that's completely ridiculous. There's nothing really good here for black to do. The only move really that's semi-workable for black is to take the rook on g5. And once that rook, once the rook falls, now the black rook falls, but now we've got this dark square bishop eyeballing up the pawn on g5. And we have a very, very workable set of pawns here for white against black's doubled up pawns and isolated pawn on g5. So there's a whole bunch of possibilities from this point. However, I should say that after this move, rook to g5, Mr. Svidler resigned. Let's take a look at some of the possibilities that could have happened here. So once the rooks are off the table, we have something like this. That pawn's got to be saved, at least for the short term. There's no other way that black can save that pawn. So pawn push here to g4. And let's just watch and see what happens when this takes place. And you're going to see something really nice here. Look at that bishop now. Just a nice little bishop move. Bishop up to f4. We're making way for our king now to get access to the center of the board. The bishop is protecting h6. It's protecting g3. It's also protecting e3 in the future. And most importantly, on these doubled pawns here for black, it's a dark square for promotion here on c1. So this bishop can constantly keep an eye on c1. The king is free to do whatever it wants. It can go wherever it wants. And as you can see here, black's pawns are not very nicely placed at all, and this king is not going to have a problem coming into the position to munch them up. So here we've got a pawn check. Now there's two possible moves here. We can take with the bishop. That just lets this pawn here on the a file become a monster, and white's going to be able to promote that. The other possible move was king captures that pawn. So if I go back a move, if the king takes that pawn, well, now this pawn becomes monstrous, unstoppable, and it's game over. So there really was no good options here for black, so that's why Mr. Svidler resigned. In fact, if we tried something like king to f7 here and just leaving the pawn there, trying to bring the king into the action to try to deal with some of these white pawns, well, that doesn't work out good at all, because this bishop here is still monstrous. If I go back to this position here, still covering this square on c1. This is a light square bishop. This is a dark square. Not a good combination to have when you're working with trying to promote a pawn here, because that white bishop is pretty much neutered. Like, it can't do anything here, and the barrage is just going to come. So I thought it was it was a good play by Mamandarov. Obviously, Mr. Svidler kind of gave it to him on a silver platter. Especially if we go back to this move here, just hanging a pawn there, no compensation for that whatsoever, and it created this whole structure that especially when you factor in the queen coming now to d7. So a better move in that position, according to the engines, is to keep that queen where it is and bring the rook to help with the defense on a8. But nonetheless, you're still down upon a material here. White's got some beautiful piece activity. Like, I mean, just take a look at this. We've got the dark square bishop bearing down here. We've got the queen in the action. We've got the light square bishop beautifully placed. We've got a rook on f1. So yeah, Mr. Svidler did kind of give this to Mr. Mamandarov today. But nonetheless, Mr. Mamandarov came up with a nice attacking line as a result of that one little mistake, hanging that pawn there, plus then queen to d7 opened up that opportunity that got us to this beautiful move right here, which I thought was probably the move of the game in my opinion. Now, we did have another game today. We had Topalov squaring off against Kramnik. I'm not going to cover that game at all or show any of the awesome things that were in it. They didn't shake hands today, and I thought that that was quite unprofessional, and not going to bother taking the time to look at their game. Topalov did win. It is a very good game to take a look at. I'm sure some other YouTube commentators will cover it and show all the beauty that was in that game. Topalov played kind of a novelty move and said that his seconds had kind of thought it was a good move, I guess, and he tried it, and Kramnik couldn't handle it. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way when they didn't shake hands. I understand that there's some bad blood there. Maybe we'll do a look into that a little bit later, but I think it's called Toilet Gate of all things. But I'm sorry, when you've got chess clubs around the world, you've got young kids that are following the progress of this as part of their clubs, and even the families around the world that are taking chess really seriously, and to see that at this top level, it's no different than when the pro football players or the pro basketball players or the pro hockey players or whatever do something unprofessional. They get punished in the media for it. Like, I mean, you can't get around it. You're an extremely public figure, and to me, that was just a very, very bad taste for both these guys to do that. Not even shake hands before the game. And you could tell that there obviously is no love lost between these gentlemen. They won't even look at each other, fidgeting around, and yeah, it's unfortunate. I'd like to go over the game. Like I said, other people probably will, but if they can't take the time to shake hands at the beginning of the game, I'm not going to take time to talk about their game. I'm sure lots of people will talk about it. There is some really good stuff in there, and maybe in the future I might cover some of the tactical ideas from there in a future video that's not related to candidate coverage, but I'm not going to include it in here. So we're going to take a moment now. We're going to switch to the standing screen. We're going to talk a little bit about where these guys are standing, how many rounds we got left, what I think might happen, and then that one we'll wrap up the video. So let's move to that now. All right, here's our point total so far after 6 rounds of Candidate Chess 2014. Of course, Anand's in the leadership position here. He's at 4 points, followed by Aronian at 3.5. We've got a huge grouping tied for third place right now. We got Svidler, Mamedarov, Topalov, Kramnik, and then following the big pack there, we've got Kiriakinen and Draken. So what do I think is going to happen moving forward in the next few rounds? Here's my thoughts and opinions. I believe that Anand the Assassin is sitting back a little bit here. I believe he's kind of saving his best for last. I think that we are going to see a big performance out of him in the last half of the tournament. We've already seen him. He's already shown that he's the most consistent player in this tournament so far. He has not been defeated on the board yet. He's won 2 games and he's secured the rest of his points in draws. So he hasn't shown some of these positional blunders and analysis issues that we've seen some of the other players display. He's been very, very solid, and I almost get the impression when I'm thinking of Anand in this tournament that he's kind of waiting. He's waiting to pounce with some of his novelty ideas that he's come up with, and I think that the last half of the tournament we're really going to see him shine. Now for Aronian's been quite consistent as well. Yes, he lost his first game versus Anand, but ever since that loss, he came back, got a couple wins there, a couple draws, he's sitting at 3.5 points. He as well is right in the running for first place in this tournament. But we can't discount the other people right behind these guys too. Like we've got Svidler, Mamedarov, Topalov, and Kramnik. All of them are within striking range. However, I think consistency is an issue here with some of these players. Svidler, definitely. Something's going on there. There's some consistency issues with him. I am not expecting him to win this tournament. I would be surprised if he does, unless in the next 2 or 3 rounds he can show that he's got that under control. Mamedarov, you gotta like the guy, man. Like, I mean, he's the only guy in the tournament that lost the first 2 games. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's over. It's all done for Mamedarov. And ever since his 2 losses, what did he do? He came back with a win. Then a couple draws, then a win. Okay, now he's right back into it. He's at 3 points. He's only a point back behind the leader. He is somebody to watch out for here. I think that maybe, just maybe, the first 2 losses that he suffered at the beginning of the tournament, that might have just pushed him over the edge motivation-wise to come in and just focus and get the job done. So we'll have to watch out for Mamedarov. Topalov, always a risk. Once again, I apologize to the Topalov fans out there. I like to cover Topalov games. I said that in my previous video. Not going to do it in this video. You know why. I'm not going to get into it again, but he's another gentleman to watch out for here. You never know with Topalov, like he busted out a novelty move today, and who knows how much else he's got planned here. So we'll have to watch him. A little bit about Topalov, though, I'm not sure. Consistency, some of the mistakes that he made in his loss were rather large, so we'll have to see how it moves forward for him in the tournament. Vladimir Kramnik, of course, always a threat, just like Topalov. Kramnik, let's just take a look here. I'm just kind of looking at an alternative screen here. Kramnik had a very solid start, 3 draws, and he suffered his loss, came back with a win and another draw. So obviously he's still within striking range. Karyakin and Andrakin, I'm not counting them out yet. I think that there still is room for them to come back. We've got a lot of rounds left. They're only a point. Karyakin's only a point and a half away from the leadership position, and Draken is 2 points away. And a lot can happen. Like, the beautiful thing about chess tournaments is when you get a win, you get a full point. So if you're competing against somebody who gets a couple draws over 2 days, and you come in and you get a full point on one day and a draw on the other day, you've already made some good progress there. So we're not counting them out yet. They haven't reached the point of no return yet. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform over the next couple rounds. But that's my thoughts and opinions on that. Definitely post yours in the comments below. And yeah, it's break day tomorrow, so there won't be a video for Candidate 2014 for me. This is kind of the debrief summary at the end of this video here. I might come up with something else, but if not, we will see you guys for round 7. So take care. Thanks for watching the video, and we will see you next time.